Okay, we're for our second session in the morning of the TWIGF tutorial. We have a little bit of switching of the roles, so I will be the moderator or the host for this session. I'm Charles Mok, and for this session, first of all, let me introduce our speaker. The speaker is going to be Ken-ying Tseng, who is a partner of Lee & Lee, attorney at law. So her specializations in terms of law are in the areas of merger and acquisition, personal data privacy, protection, cybersecurity, e-commerce, internet law, telecommunications, competition law, and so on. And she has advised on various forms of M&A activities. Her experience are in both legal and commercial issues, and in particular, her technology practice also cover AI, fintech, OTT, e-payment, P2P lending, and so on. I'm not going to read them. You know, all the all the areas that's involved in the new economy. Ken-ying also advises clients on corporate governance, general compliance, onshore and offshore listing, and so on. She is a special consultant for the National Development Council in Taiwan for personal data protection issues. She is also a director of the National Information Infrastructure Enterprise Promotion Association and a member of the International Affairs Committee of TWNIC and the director of the Secured Online Shopping Association. She is, of course, also the GAC representative for Taiwan, which is what she is going to be talking, well, GAC of ICANN, representing Taiwan, right? So she will be in particular probably sharing with us the experience in that regard. So let's welcome Ken-ying. And after that, we will have Guowei give us some, give us some reaction in terms of sharing his experience in ICANN as well. So we can.
But I didn't drink last night. Though.
You didn't. You don't drink.
Yeah, I didn't.
You don't need drink, but you're already drunk. Anyway, so I shouldn't say that. Okay. Anyway, but Guowei, of course, has many years of experience in the ICANN community, having been on the board and so on. So I think today, this session, we're talking about geopolitics. We already mentioned some of the issues in terms of geopolitical implications on critical infrastructure. The internet, obviously connecting, one internet for, connecting the world and so on. We do see that governments are trying to be getting more and more involved in the internet that, we use. So what is that implication on some of these multi-stakeholder organizations that governs internet administration, such as ICANN? That is our starting point for the discussion for the next hour and a half or so until 12:30. So without further ado, let's hear from Ken-ying and then Guowei, and then we can open up for some questions and comments from the audience. Ken-ying, thank you.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you, Guowei. And thank you for everyone to join this section. I find it very interesting for me to be sitting here talking in this topic because I'm a lawyer, and most of my time, I spend my time in legal practice handling M&A transaction and advising on data privacy compliance. And I seldom set foot in the political world, like countries to countries. But starting from last year, I was appointed as one of the GAC representatives for Taiwan at ICANN. So from there, I sense more about some geopolitical issues. So today, Guowei asked me to share some of my experience and my view on that. So shall we? Okay, that's my slide. So first of all, we need to define what is geopolitics before we start to discuss this issue. I guess from different perspectives and from different professions, we will have different perception and vision or definition on this this term. And for recent years, because of the tensions and the wars and other incidents, we see that the geopolitics become a more and more popular topics around the globe. For example, we have seen Russian and the Ukraine war, and they are not fighting against each other in the real world. They are also fighting against each other in cyberspace. And they try to, Ukraine tried to take down Russia's domain, country code domain once, but I can refuse it. So that's one of the famous example for the geopolitical issues in the internet world. And for United States and China, we see that the US government has been sort of forming their policy against China, especially for technology side. They are worried that China may be importing their advanced technology and develop more technology, and the US is afraid of that. So there are various sanctions that the US government is imposing. For example, they are, like Taiwan, they are now reviewing more from the foreign direct investment side. They are reviewing each of the foreign direct investment cases if there is national security concern. And they are conducting a more extensive review than before. And also they are restricting technology travel from US to export from US to China. They are setting up various restrictions. For example, in Taiwan, we are the largest semiconductor manufacturer, and they are imposing transfer restrictions so that our even the semiconductor manufacturer in Taiwan, they need to conduct KYC against their vendors and their customers so as to comply with various restrictions taken by United States. That's another, for Mamina, that is, that may be due as a geopolitical issue. And we see recently Iran has attacked Israel, and they used advanced technology like drones and releasing bombs by drones. And they attract tensions in that area, which has been a problematic area for 1,000 years, but still they are doing more attack. That's the recent incident from the real world, maybe not entirely from the cyberspace. And then the middle one, China and Taiwan. I'm a MMA lawyer, but I have been quite not very occupied or busy for like 2 years. Why? Do you know why? Because foreign investors, they are sort of afraid of China. They don't know when China is going to attack Taiwan. So because Li and Li serve mostly foreign clients, almost all of our foreign clients want to ask us, can you tell us when China is going to attack Taiwan? So they can determine whether they want to make investment into Taiwan. And also, the many multinational companies, they are setting up agenda or rehearsal their retrieval plan. If there is any political tension or China is going to attack us, they want to move their staff technology assets out from Taiwan. So they are making plans and asking us to review from legal points. As for the investment side, I think for that part, it's quite silent, except for a few industry and areas like this. For example, for the renewable energy, for wind farm, solar farm, for those foreign investment are coming into Taiwan quite a lot, except for Japanese. They are very risk averse. They are so worried about China-Taiwan tension. And another area is data center. We just talked about data center in the previous section. Many regional players, they come to Taiwan. They want to help us to build large data centers in Taiwan. For these two areas, foreign investment are quite popular. They are coming into Taiwan to help us to do more construction and establishment of data center and new energy farms. But for the other sectors, I must say that the foreign investment has been reduced quite a lot. As a MMA lawyer, I can sense that. So I have been doing digital practice more in 2 years. So that's a practical example to show you the China-Taiwan tension. And Taiwan has been changing a little bit. That when I was a kid, all of the boys, they need to serve military for 2 years. And then the length of time gradually shortened. Until a certain point, I think that boys only need to serve military for like a couple of months. 3 months. And then they complete their service to the country. But the government is now, again, promoting extension the period of time that they should serve at the military. So that's something that Taiwan is in reacting to the China-Taiwan tension. In addition to that, I have been participating in many events held by foreign business in Taiwan. For example, I am also a co-chair of the tech committee of European Chamber of Commerce. We held many events. We invite local thinkers to guide us how to navigate while we have this China-Taiwan tension. And I remember one of the speakers who was a US reporter, who is a very famous one, he said that Taiwanese should defend Taiwanese on our own, not to wait the assistance from the United States. That's what we heard. It seems that from outside of Taiwan, foreigners think that the tension is real, the threat is real, and Taiwan need to be well prepared. So that's the situation we are in Taiwan. Back to the definition of geopolitics. It may mean different things and different angles for different people. For example, I talk about business. That the exact example in Taiwan is that foreigners, they need to decide whether they want to expand their investment in Taiwan, or if anything happened, then they need to close down their operation in Taiwan and retrieve everything from Taiwan. That's one perspective, one angle. And for individuals, if we just talk about a small things, that's the currency that we are holding. Sometimes new Taiwan dollars appreciate, sometimes US dollars appreciate. So the currency fluctuate based on the news, like, oh, maybe there will be a war, or maybe Chinese will be doing something. So that's from a very small, very light perspective that will affect our daily life. And for investors, stock markets, the price will be fluctuated based on the situation. If there is any news about a regional war, then the stock price may be changing. Maybe for those who are focusing on development of weapons, their stock price will rise. But maybe for those companies that are located in the areas where the war is going to happen, then their stock price may be drop. So that's another angle from the stock market price angle. And for fishermen, Taiwan is surrounded by oceans, so I mentioned this. If there is any geopolitical tension, maybe fishermen may no longer fish because the area of sea may be closed, or temporarily they may be advised not to go to somewhere. For this tension, in the previous session, you heard a lot about what Chinese fish bowl is doing, and they are not only doing fishing and our sea cable, they are doing something else. As Taiwanese, you know, they are transporting people and also other goods on the sea. So if there is any geopolitical tension, maybe all this activity will stop and or for fishermen, that will affect their daily life. And for countries, that the most serious one, I believe that's war. So if there's any tension and that triggers actual attack, then we need to face it. And before that, of course, we need to build up our national security system, our national defense system. We need to keep our network resilient. So that's what a government, countries should do from geopolitical perspective. And today I need to go back to the internet because we are doing Internet Governance Forum. So what does geopolitical means to the internet? So maybe that's temporarily defined. It is the government influence on the internet. Maybe that's one way to look at this issue. So here I need to talk about this example again. GDPR is the most famous data privacy statute in the world. The whole world now is following GDPR standard to sort of structure our data privacy law and also to structure a business practice to data subjects. And for this phenomenon, Professor Anu Bradford of Columbia Law School in New York City of the United States, she named the phenomenon as the Brussels effect. So, and she published a book. I had the privilege to listen to her speech and her idea in person when I attended the IAPP Global Summit this year at Washington, D.C. And she basically made it very clear that the world is divided by 3 kingdoms. There are 3 different models based on the Privacy Act. For GDPR, it is originated from EU. And EU, what is, in terms of personal data, EU is a data exporter. EU countries, they do not run large digital platforms. And digital platforms outside of EU is collecting the personal data of EU individuals. That's the situation of EU. So EU united and formed GDPR as an international treaty to protect the personal data of the individuals located in EU. And the GDPR, if you had read anything about GDPR, you know that GDPR raised the standard of data protection. They require everything to the extent. For example, if you want to get a consent based on the GDPR rules, you need to tell your data subject a lot of things. And if you really diligently want to comply with those requirements, you will end up drafting, I think, maybe a 10-page legal document in order to comply with all the requirements under EU law. And they really raise up the standard of data privacy in order to protect EU individuals' personal data. And then to the US side, US does not have a strong data protection act as GDPR. They are enacting state laws and also discussing whether they want to have a federal law to protect personal data. But their laws are much looser than the EU standard. I always, when I talk about this issue, I always use one example. Under both EU law and the Taiwan law, personal data cannot be freely shared among data controllers unless there are certain requirements that has been met. For example, you have the data subject consent, or for example, the sharing is within a certain specific purpose when the data was collected. That's the basic principle. Data cannot be freely shared among different data controllers. That's a golden rule when I do the practice. But under US law, you can sell personal data freely. Companies can transfer and sell and share with others personal data, their consumer personal data, freely without restriction, unless the consumer exercise their opt-out right, then you need to stop using that particular consumer's data. So that's a quite different angle, completely different mindset in these two different legal systems. So you can see the tension between USA and EU based on the the difference of their data protection legal system. And then the rest is China. China is an isolated world. They have the largest platform in the world. They have WeChat, Douyin, 支付宝, everything. But those platforms are developed and I shouldn't say generated, grow up within China, because China has the Great Wall. They don't allow Chinese people to use US apps. They are forced, or they are willing to use their own apps. So they develop their own digital economy. Their technology architecture is different from outside world, and their law used to be different from the outside world. But right now, China copied everything from GDPR. China just implemented maybe even a higher standard from GDPR of their own data privacy law. But still, they are isolated. They don't interact with the rest of the world, except for exporting Douyin. But for the others, like law and technology, those are not compatible with the rest of the world. So Professor Bradford, when I listened to her speech, she asked one question to all the audience. So which model would us follow when we talk about data privacy and artificial intelligence? Should we follow China, US, or EU? I need to mention one, even though China copied GDPR, but China's personal data and privacy law serve the purpose of the state. That is Chinese government. Their law is not to protect individual rights or data subject rights. Their law is to serve the government's will. That is not said by me. That was said by a law professor in Beijing when we have another international conference. He said it publicly. So Professor Bradford asked us, which model should we follow? And this model, even though we haven't started to choose, they already affect our daily life. Because, for example, for business, for Google, Facebook, they are forced to follow GDPR because EU are imposing very high fine on them and try to regulate them so that they can be like EU companies. So even though we haven't decided, but still business, because of law, because of national law, because of government, then they are forced to follow one of the models. So I think this is also a perspective from geopolitics, from legal perspective. And it is not just the privacy law. I mentioned privacy law because that's my main practice area. EU not only enact data privacy law, they also enact AI law, and that's the Product Safety Consumer Protection Act. If you want to develop an AI model, in the future, if you want to sell your model to EU, you need to follow EU standard. So there are many other things EU is setting standards, and all around the world, people and the business need to follow their standards because we want to do business with them. We will be transacting with people in EU. I think that's another angle to look at the geopolitics. And back to the internet. So we see the three kingdoms already, but in fact, who controls the internet? This is a chart showing the people, but the words is too small. The largest part is the blue one. So that's the most population using the internet. That's from China. So there are many Chinese using internet, more than the rest of the world, than the other countries. And the yellow one is European. It's a little bit less than China. And the green one is India. India now has the largest population in the world, but there are not so many Indians are using the internet apparently. So it's less than the share of China. And the light blue, light green one are American and Brazil. And this one is the American one, and then this is Brazil. So much smaller than China and European and India. And the other smaller one, Russian and Japan. So that's sort of the landscape of how many people are using the internet now. So because China has the largest share, so shall we follow Chinese model? So Chinese rule the internet because they have more people if we are doing it democratically? That's a question for every one of us. Then coming down to more practically from implementation side, geopolitics to internet. If we say that's the government's influence on the internet, then how the government is exercising their influence on the internet, maybe that's through international organizations such as ICANN. ICANN now controls the DNS system, how to issue domain name, how to issue IP address. ICANN sort of control DNS system. And how government control ICANN then? How government will influence ICANN or is influencing ICANN? So this is a structure. I think since you are coming to IGF, maybe you have already seen this chart. That's the governance structure of ICANN. And in the middle, that's the directors, and around the globe is a different stakeholder of ICANN. Where's GAC? GAC is over here. That is a governmental advisory committee, one of the stakeholders of ICANN. And GAC has one seat at the board, but that director has no voting rights. So in the board of directors of ICANN, GAC has no voting rights. That's its governance structure. And who has the voting rights? The CEO, LUC, SO, CCNSO, GNSO, NOMCON committee. All of these stakeholders, they can appoint multiple directors at ICANN board, and all of them have voting rights. And there are some other stakeholder group like GAC. They can nominate directors, but all these directors have no voting right. So I want to emphasize, GAC is over here. GAC has one director at the board, but the director has no voting right. So then how GAC can influence ICANN? Or is GAC has any influence power at all? Actually, personally, I think smaller or larger, GAC has quite a lot of influence on ICANN board. Here I list out 2 examples. That's what I have been doing for Taiwan government because I'm one of the GAC representatives. We had the ICANN meeting at Kigali, Rwanda. After that meeting, GAC issued its communique. In GAC's communique, we lay out 2 important principles. One is GAC object ICANN to adopt any auction methods when ICANN assign new GTOT. If there is contentions on one send string between commercial and the non-commercial state group, we don't want ICANN to use auction as the final method to determine the allocation of the contentious string as new GTOD. That's one statement we made. The other one is about applicant support program. In Kigali, the ICANN board made a presentation to us stating that the ICANN applicant support program will be managed on a first come, first served basis. So For example, we have found sufficient for 20 applicants, so they will issue the support one by one based on the order they submit the application. As long as they meet the qualification, they will issue the grant. So when the fund is out, then the program is closed. GAC disagree with that. GAC want ICANN to open the applicant support program for a certain period of time and receive all the application. And until the every end, I can select which applicant can get the support. That's GAC's position. So we issue these two statements in our communique. So the board now is negotiating with GAC. The board wants us to change our position because otherwise the ICANN board cannot proceed further on these two issues. It is because in ICANN bylaws, it says that the consensus advice of GAC has certain influence on ICANN board. That is, if ICANN board disagrees with GAC, then ICANN board need to make a decision to overrule GAC's advice, and it needs the vote of no less than 60 of the board in order to adopt a board resolution to overrule GAC consensus advice. So in my 1.5 years serving as a GAC member, I can see that whenever GAC issue any communique, the board will respect GAC's opinion. And in the past, they will sort of follow us. For example, last year, GAC representative want the personal data tracking system, RDRS, to be confidential if the requester is from law enforcement authority. And that advice is from GAC. I thought that ICANN wouldn't follow that because that may be too costly to implement. But after we issued the communique, actually the system added one function to that government authority to keep confidential when they make personal data requests. So that's what happened last year. This year, the two issues are more important than just to have a confidential option. So I can see that ICANN board is preparing to teach and educate each of the GAC members to help them to change their mind right now. And GAC is also discussing internally how to respond to pressure from the board. So I talk about this is because really GAC has certain influence on the board, even though the director from GAC representative has no voting right at ICANN board. And then you may be interested in how GAC is formed and how GAC make the consensus decision to influence ICANN board. And GAC membership open to national governments' distinct economy. It is highlighted in blue because we, Taiwan, is a ICANN GAC member as a distinct economies. We are not there as a country. We are just economy. So countries and the distinct economies, we are qualified to join GAC as member, and we have voting rights. And GAC elect a chair and the vice chair from all the membership. This year, the chair, both chair and vice chair, their terms will end by the end of this year, I believe. And in Istanbul, we are going to hold another election for these positions. Currently, there are 183 members and 39 intergovernmental organization observers. And when we hold the GAC discussions, all the IGOs, they will observers, they will also voice out their opinions. And each of the GAC member, they can appoint their accredited representative and also advisor representative. For example, for Taiwan, we have 6 representatives. Each of us have different function. For the other countries, they may appoint a different number of representatives. And but most of them will have at least 2 representatives at the GAC. This is the current GAC leadership. Nico is our representative at the ICANN board, and he's also the chair. He's running his 2nd term currently. And all these are the vice chairs that was elected last year. We have China, UK, Lebanon, Colombia, and Egypt as the current vice chairs. The vice chairs, their terms are going to be end this year too. So we are also running the vice chair election now. And as far as I remember, Diego has been nominated. So he will run the election, and also Christine, 2 of them. There are other representatives mentioned their intention to run the vice chair, such as Australia and India. That's a picture that they post on their socials when they finish one of the meeting at the high-level government meeting at Kigali, Rwanda, the chair and the vice chair. So how do we form the consensus GAC advice? It's a very, it's a very interesting process. For example, when we make a decision, the chair will be sitting here and ask each of the audience, do you agree or anyone object? If there is no objection, then the resolution is adopted. But if there's anyone make objection, then we need to discuss what to do with the objection. So until no one is making any more objection. So the second objection will overrule the first objection, and there will maybe 3rd, 4th, continuing until there's no objection at all. Then the conclusion is made. And regardless whether all of the members are in the room or on the internet. So as long as there's no one say no, then the decision is made. So considering like Taiwan is a small economy, not even a country, if we want, we can say objection. We can voice out our opinion continuously until nobody is fighting against us. So as the other countries, even though you are just a small country, not US, not the EU, you can say whatever you want and get consensus advice will not be determined or formed because there's one country objects to it. So that's a very interesting mechanism. So each of the GAC members has the right to veto a decision. And these show all those GAC members who are very, very active at the GAC meeting. Originally, I make it an animation, but no, it is not. So who, guess who is the most active GAC members in GAC meeting? Here we have India, Iran, Egypt, Swiss, EU, USA, and Brazil.
Iran.
Yes. Before anyone end his speech, Iran will raise his hand. So the chair will say, oh, Iran, Mr. Kapus, your turn. So please let us know your opinion. So I tried to race with him. I couldn't win him at any time. So he's so quick. And the others,
Capable.
yeah.
Very capable person.
Yeah, but I really appreciate his enthusiasm. I hope I could be like him, so Taiwan can be seen more. And the others, like Swiss, Jorge is a very diligent GAC member. He remembers all the history. He talks all the time. Like the 2 issues I raised, I believe he's behind the thing, drafting all the GAC opinions and languages. And USA and the European Union, of course, these are the 2 major economies. They do talk a lot, but they don't talk on their own. they will have someone else to talk for them. They are very, very good. And Egypt, because Egypt representative was the chair, so she talks a lot too, mainly to help GAC members, because each time when we have a meeting, there will be newcomers. We don't remember what happened before, and she will come out and tell us what's going on and what we should do. And India talk a lot too, but most of the time I couldn't understand their English. So, but they make a valuable contribution, because whenever they speak, the USA need to come out and tell them, oh, this is GAC, GAC is doing this and that. And then Brazil talks a lot whenever we talk about public interests. That is because Amazon was taken by the USA. So whenever we talk about a name with public interest, with cultural origin, country origin, Brazil will raise his hand to talk a lot, and a lot. So that's sort of the, I should say, landscape in the GAC. So how about China and Taiwan? I need to say that China and Taiwan are quite silent, quiet in the meeting. China sometimes talk, but they didn't raise critical comment or issue. They will ask questions. And Taiwan, we don't talk that much. One reason is because whenever I raise my hand, the chair is forced to say, oh, Chinese Taipei, you raise your hand, please say. I don't want that happen. I want he to tell me, to call me Taiwan, but he's forbidden to do so. So then I try not to speak too often in order not to let everyone hear Chinese Taipei. But anyway, as I said, because of the consensus mechanism, either of us can disrupt or form a consensus GAC advice if we want to. So I think that's the beauty of ICANN's multi-stakeholder mechanism that allow each of the country to voice their opinion, to try to formulate a policy in ICANN and the GAC. That's very interesting. And the last, this is my resume and biography. I will show it in each of my speech. And this one is a test for your eyes. Can you tell what's the difference between these two pages? Yes, I was forced to remove national because under GAC's protocol, Taiwan joined GAC as a distinguished economy, not as a Taiwan. So I was not allowed to say anything about Taiwan by using the word national or country. So I was forced to remove my resume. So I'm now a Harvard graduate, not an NTU graduate. So I think that's all my presentation. I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, but at least Taiwan .tw is still CCTLD, so it's a country code, top-level domain. But okay, maybe they overlooked that before. But I think the importance of talking about ICANN and GAC within ICANN is that we talk about multi-stakeholder model a lot these days. But at least to me, it seems like ICANN embodies at least a very well-working model of multi-stakeholderism. I mean, there are problems, obviously, right? Whenever you have so many countries or jurisdictions together. But noting that GAC, Governmental Advisory Council, is advisory. The A is advisory. It's advisory only. It doesn't even have a vote on the board. So that's very unique.
No, I can explain.
Well, you will explain. That's why I talk about this. So, and contrasting that with the United Nations kind of model, which is not multi-stakeholder, which is top-down, government dictated, and so on. So it's the perfect time to pass the mic to Guowei for you to give your reaction to what Ken-ying talked about, and also your experience. I know you have so many stories about ICANN. Thank you.
I can share some of the experience. Can I use in your slide? I like to use in Ken-ying's slide. Can you bring down the slide again? how to go back. Oh, this one. This one, go back. Go back. From the first page. Yeah. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, I think first of all, regarding for the geopolitics in the internet, actually this is not new, no? From the very beginning of the internet started to talking about the governance in 1999, they already have an issue about the geopolitics. Because at the time the internet started from the United States, several of the countries actually have a disagreement with the U.S. government, particularly the IANA operation or IANA management. How many of you know what does the IANA mean? Can you raise your hand? IANA. I-A-N-A. Okay. It seems like several people that doesn't know that. Okay. Let me give you a very brief explain about why IANA is. IANA basically is the management for the domain name. So is anybody know what is the domain name? Raise your hand. Domain name. See, much better. How many of you know IP address? Raise your hand. Good. So now, why IANA is critical? Because IANA is doing the IP address and also the domain name management. And the most important is loose server coordination too. But in the very beginning, in the 1998 or 1997, the European and also the Russian and several of the countries is against the United States because they say, how come the IANA is belong to U.S. government? But the problem, the Republican in the United States, in U.S. that they have two major parties, right? Republican and Democrat. And Republican is very conservative. Republicans say, because the internet is created by the U.S. DARPA projects. So in the case, they belong to U.S. property, intellectual property. So anybody, take away of the IANA, that means you are the American traitor. So there's a very Republican, argument. And so there's a very beginning in the 1999 already have some kind of this kind of the issue because IANA is so critical. And then in the 1999, the UN actually began to talking about how to manage the IANA management stuff. And so the UN launched the two major meetings, the WISIS. I don't know how many of you go to the WISIS meeting. I went both of them. The one is in Geneva, and another one is in Tunis. And the critical thing is all the U.S., all the non-U.S. government, they want the IANA is under the UN, kind of the international control, not the U.S. only. But the problem is the U.S. government don't want to give it up. So eventually, coming out is the resolution is U.S. government, Bill Clinton allow and say, okay, we can start ICANN to run this IANA operation. But the problem not resolved because IANA still belong to U.S. government, but they allow the foreign country, the other people coming to sit down to watch the IANA management. And that is why you can see, oh, sorry, what, go down. Go down, go down, go down. Sorry about it, go down. Okay, you have a chart, go down. Yeah, okay. So you can see eventually there's a multi-stakeholder, and the idea actually coming from the Harvard Law School, very famous Professor Roland Lessig. He introduced this kind of multi-stakeholder put into the ICANN bylaw. And Ken-ying talking about the gag position in the ICANN governance structure, they don't have a voting right. Actually, in the very beginning, we tried to give the voting right to government, but no government say they don't want it. The reason why they don't want it, just like Ken-ying talking about right now, they have 183 countries. Who going to vote? You know, it's very difficult to get a 183 say, we say this and that. So eventually they just say, we want an advisory right, but we don't want a voting right. You know, so that is one of the reasons. And the following some of the, you know, the RSEC, ESEC, and the IETF, because of all the technical people, you know. The RSEC is the loose server, and the ESEC is security. IETF, you know, is a protocol guy. You know, those are technical people. They want to involve, but they don't want to do the voting. You know, so they come out. They have a voting right or non-voting right. It's not because the bylaw building on that. It's under a long time. I think it's go through almost 3 or 4 years. The negotiation and discussion eventually come out in this situation. Okay, and then I try to make it quick. And
yeah, we leave about 20 minutes at least to some questions.
Sure. Yeah, I can do it. Okay, and so this is the geopolitical issue is not new in this internet community, and particularly I remember there is one in the 2004. The 2004 there's the ICANN meeting in Cape Town. That is the very first time the Vinserv asked the China board member, Chen Hualin. He asked Chen Hualin one simple question in public. In public, he said, is China trying to fragment the internet? You know, because why Vinserv asked the question? Because at the time, China tried to build an alternative route. That means they have their own loose server, separate out from the general one. And so Vinserv directly asked Chen Hualin. And Chen Hualin at the time is kind of shocked because he didn't think about Vinserv was asked in public before, you know, in front of the 3,000 people.
Who is Vinserv?
Vinserv is the father of the internet, okay. And so the Chen Hualin said, no, we never try to break the internet. We don't want to do the fragmentation, but well, how much you can trust? Well, we don't know, okay. And the geopolitical getting more critical actually is just right in Ukraine war. If you remember, the Ukraine war happened 2 years ago. And when the Ukraine war happened, the foreign minister of the Ukraine write an email to the ICANN board, say, I want you to take off the Russia CCTLD. and also the Ukraine minister go to the RAP NCC, say, I want you to take all out the IPv4, IPv6 address out of the Russia. And you know that if we take the .su, .ru out of the loose server, that means the Russian internet disappear on the internet. And if the RAP NCC take it back, all the IPv4, IPv6 address, make it like, embedded. That means the internet is very difficult to run. And so what's happened is eventually the ICANN say no. ICANN is in the very central of the geopolitical fighting. And so ICANN board eventually say we can terminate that as Soviet Union, SV, but not that RU. And For IP address, it's kind of funny. The RIME-NCC say no. But then the minister go to the I think it's in the Netherlands court to sue the RIME-NCC. And eventually NCC is take over the IP address for Russian government. But for commercial, he didn't touch that. So this is getting critical for the geopolitics. And right now, I think the following, like Ken-ying talking about, the situation between the Taiwan and China. Of course, it's very sensitive. It really depends on the chair of the GAC. In the previous time, the GAC chair, I don't want to mention the name and country, he's much nicer. He would not say, oh, Chinese Taipei, it's your turn to talk. He would say, Ken-ying, it's your time to talk. Do you see the difference? He knows how to practice that kind of diplomat way to make the Chinese Taipei feel a little bit better, And so this really depends on how the chair is. A chair can do that, then I think you will feel better. And the another issue is the Ken-ying say because of the GAC is organized by country and also the distinguished the economy. There is a couple of reasons. Because in the very early day, when the GAC is formed, I was in the first position from Taiwan, and I added distinguished economy into that, the guiding principle. And my reason is simple, because not only Taiwan is an economy, okay, because Hong Kong is in there, Macau is in there, Pakistan is there, No, Israel don't agree. So, yeah. Anyway, so you can see that is always is a politics in there, So there is a distinguish of the economy is over there. Palestine. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Palestine. Yeah. And so that is the reason that the geopolitics happen in this internet community is not new. It's always continue. It's from the very first day till now. So I just make a little bit comment, and Charles, we can open for.
Yeah, let's open the floor for some questions. And we have 2 microphones on both sides, both aisles. Anyone may want to interject with any questions? No one? Okay, Liz, please.
Thank you. Elizabeth Doncourt with the American Bar Association's Rule of Law Initiative. I really appreciate all of this discussion. ICANN seems a bit like a black box. And with that in mind, I was just wondering if you could speak a little bit about your experience with engagement with civil society through ICANN.
Can we show the last slide again? I think that will help. Yeah, actually, ICANN, it shouldn't be a black box, but it's whether or not people care enough to understand how it works. And it is complicated. You look at that chart of the board of directors, which this one is good. Which identify all the different, all these crazy acronyms. What do they mean, right? Yep. You talk about civil society. That should be ALAC. You want to?
If I may.
If you go ahead first.
Ken Herman, I spoke earlier. One of the roles that I have is the North American representative to the non-commercial user constituency, which is part of the non-commercial stakeholder group. And so we are represented in the GNSO, the General Name Supporting Organization, and we're proud that one of our counselors is from Taiwan. And so that's where civil society meets the United Nations, not the United Nations, with ICANN. meets the ICANN, where the civil society, where the voice, non-commercial stakeholder group, is the voice of civil society in the ICANN mechanism. So, and not just civil society, but all nonprofit organizations. There's a commercial stakeholder group, and if you think that ICANN itself is a black box, the GNSO is blacker still, because so the GNSO stands for the generic name supporting organization. So all of the top TLDs, the top level TLDs.
Yeah, can we show that slide?
Yeah.
And just go through them one by one?
Yes, and I don't mean to give a briefing on ICANN and its mechanism. I can leave that to people who know a bit more about it. But it's as you see, the green box is where all decisions about the generic top-level names get discussed, and how that mechanism really works before it's presented to the board. And there are multiple stakeholders in there, and that's divided basically in, just quickly, the quick answer is that's divided into two separate halves. Shall I say, the contracted parties. So when you get a name, a domain name, you buy it from an organization, and that organization will sell it to you. And they operate under contract to ICANN, and the contractual terms are very specific and very lengthy, et cetera. The top-level domains themselves are operated by registries. So registries allow registrars to sell names to registrants, like you and me, and companies. And so that's how that side works. And then there's the other side, which are the non-contracted parties, like civil society, like the intellectual property organizations, interested parties, and commercial entities and such. And that there are two sides there within that.
Yeah, I think if you go look at the composition of the board, that's probably another easier way to look at it. You have the GNSO, which represented by all the top-level domain, TLD, the registries and the registrars, and thanks to the explanation we were given about the difference between the registries and registrar, but people new to this area may not still understand totally what they are, but think of it as people who are providing and reselling all these domain names, right?
The easy way is a business guy.
Yeah, and the businesses, right? The GNSO, the businesses, the domain name businesses. And then you have the CCNSO, which are the country code TLD, the two-letter .tw whatever, and even there is a .us, even though very few people use it.
And still using it.
Still using it, even though the U.S. government they somehow occupy the .gov to itself and so on, legacy reasons. And you have the ASO, which are the regional internet registries, the NICs, the NIC, which are basically responsible for the allocation of the IP addresses, right?
Yep.
So think of it that way. And then, of course, the NORMCOM is a little bit special because the NORMCOM basically is, think of it like in the board, there are 8 seats that the NORMCOM nominates, which means that they can be anybody. They don't have to be from any of these constituents, or maybe they are from some of these constituents, but they are nominated by the NORMCOM to give it a better balance of skills and experience and so on.
The basic function of the NORMCOM is try to balance 2 things. The first of all, geodiversity. Because by law, they do not allow more than every continent. You cannot have more than 6 board members in there. You don't want to dominate the whole board. So this means the board is diversified. The second one is gender. The NORMCOM, if they find too many male there, they will try to get some female in there. If there's too many female in there, they will try to get some male. Well, that didn't happen. Yeah, that's true. So there's basically the NORMCOM is doing two kind of the balance.
And then there's also the at large, which I was trying to mention. The at large basically represent the internet users. Yeah, not that you're right. It's not necessarily civil society, right?
Yeah.
But they are. They are also in a sense, representative
At large
of.
have a kind of funny interest in history. Original actually, the ICANN tried to do the digital voting, worldwide digital voting.
One person, one vote.
Yeah, one person, one vote.
Doesn't work.
And they only operate once, but eventually they find that this kind of global digital voting have a lot of scandal, and you are surprised who doing those scandal. Germany is one of it, That's mean because they have more knowledge about this kind of digital voting, so they were going to promote in the Germany community to vote, to get vote, But in the early day, for example, China only have 1% or 2% of the population have an internet experience. So they don't know how to get the vote. They cannot vote. So eventually this, and so once the digital vote doesn't work, because a large original idea is for netizen, the general user of the internet. And then they found the direct voting and go to a large. But as I was ICANN board for 6 years, I don't think it's not easy to find a representative of the netizen at all. Very difficult. Even the large is not at this stage yet.
Yeah, and then you see finally the other group of representatives without voting right. These are more technical organizations, like the technical standard organization like IETF, and then some of the advisory on the root server or security and stability and so on. So that's how it is made up. And you can see that this working multi-stakeholder model is quite different from the multi-stakeholder model when people from government talk about it.
Yep.
Even when you see the U.S. talking about the Declaration for the Future of the Internet, they talk about multi-stakeholder. United Nations talk about multi-stakeholders. But when they talk about multi-stakeholders, anyone but government, everybody else, they are only advisory. They don't really have a stake. It's only when they were invited to the table, maybe they will have a chance to say something. But it's all government decided. But they still say this is multi-stakeholderism. But I think it's important sometimes to remember that the example of ICANN may not be perfect, but it's worked for more than 20 years, and it is a lot more representative than many other so-called multi-stakeholders when other people talk about it. Anyone else may have any questions?
Yeah, please,
Liz again?
please.
Nobody? Okay. Jason. But maybe we let Jason ask, and then Liz, you can ask again, and then we can try to answer together.
Yeah, thank you. My question is about the disagreement between GATT and ICANN board, right? I think Guowei wants to be the board member, and Ken-ying was represented in the GATT. So Ken-ying, during the presentation, mentioned about currently you have the GATT and the board had a disagreement of a new GTLD auction, and another case is disagreement in the implementation of an applicant support program. And for I'm more curious about the general, the conflict resolution between board and GAC, the consensus. So which side would back down, during the process when there was a disagreement?
Let me bring up one of the situation happened. You are asking. They actually have a dispute between the GAC and the ICANN board member. What's that? Do you know at the time there is a company applied for .XXX? Do you know .XXX? You know what does .XXX mean? Pornographic. Okay, and this is the TWIGF actually try to making a GTOD running by ICANN, and ICANN is against that, and so up and down in the California court, you cannot imagine. Both sides, we spent almost $20 million in the court. Just the TWIGF sued the ICANN, and ICANN defends that. We spent almost $20 million for lawyer to argue about that. So I remember that it was 2016, eventually, 2012, sorry, 2012, the board decided we have to finish that, because if we don't finish that, you are looking for another 20 million to explain again, you know. So, but the board tried to make the final decision, but the GAC is totally against that. You know, the GAC cannot, you know that the GAC cannot come out with a consensus, because some of the governments say yes, some of the governments say no, they don't have a consensus. But once the board say we want to make a final decision, those governments stand out and say, you cannot do it, because we don't have a consensus yet. But eventually, we did in San Francisco. We decided to let the TWIGF go ahead. And so the government is very angry, you know, but interesting. If you go to the media, the major media, New York Times, whatever, and they coming out say, ICANN is coming to be independent to the government. And so some people say, this is not bad. That means, you know, ICANN should not be a slave of the government. You know, so this is one of the situation happen. And of course, they have another dispute, particularly the new GTOD. The new GTOD talking about for year and year. And the GAC is not agree, and the GAC actually come out with almost more than 400 to 500 issue. They want the ICANN to answer every question, including the new GTOD, how the new GTOD contribute to the global economy. So I can actually spend $500,000 to hire 2 economy professors to write out a report to tell the GAC, say, well, the new GTOD is not, at least is helping the global economy, whatever. And then we also running many meetings with the government, and then eventually the same thing in the 2012, the board agreed to go the new GTOD program. And the same thing that is also is a little bit dispute with the government. So it do happen. But of course, in generally, the board don't want to be, you know, fighting with the government, because you still need a legal structure to support the ICANN policy, right? You know, because ICANN is not a public authority. We don't have a legal power. We don't have a police. We don't have military. So, yep. Go ahead.
Yeah, Liz.
Well, just for those of us that were at DRAPEC earlier, we were encouraged in some of the sessions to, you know, for civil society to conduct advocacy at, say, IETF. And I was just wondering, from your experience being on GAC, what other bodies might civil society that is not part of the green bubble, you know, focus their efforts on?
Okay. That actually is a very good question. Yes, for example, the IETF. Why the IETF is in there? Because you know, almost the majority of the RFC, I mean the internet standard, the technical standard, it came out from the IETF. And IETF is a participant in this internet world for a long time ago, even before the internet started, you know. Because the IETF, I think, is formed in the 1976, very early day, you know. And so that is a reason. For example, when the ICANN launched the new GTOD, the board member is not technical people. We have to know if the new GTOD come in, is the root server can handle or not. You need a really technical supporting to tell you it's okay. Because for example, the new GTOD passed in 2012. The ICANN estimate is a 500 applicant. But it's out of surprise. We have a 2,100 application. And so we have to coming back to the IETF say, can you tell me is a root server is capable to handle this kind of application? And so that is one of the reasons why the IETF was there. And the TLG is kind of funny. The TLG original tried to bring several of the standard, for example, ITU, I think it's a T. ITUT is for technical standard, okay. But the problem is the ITU, in the very beginning, fighting with the ICANN. ITU won the ICANN is under the ITU, but the global, basically, they don't trust the ITU. And so eventually the TLD, we don't have ITU, but we have other people's.
Yeah, I'll just say a few things about this as well. I think people have heard a lot about some governments trying to take over the internet standard function from IETF to bodies such as ITU or some of the subgroups under ITU. IETF is another good example of multi-stakeholders, bottom-up type of organizations. Basically, anyone can go to the IETF and participate, Internet Engineering Task Force. But the
Taiwan.
well, okay. But the reality is, but the reality is, it is dominated culturally by the engineers, the geeks. So traditionally, even compared to ICANN with the at large, you have fewer women, fewer people from particular communities, because you always have to talk the language of the engineers, the very technical, right? And also because of that background, it is dominated by some of the companies. Because they are technical enough, and they send engineers, they send the people to try to influence to their advantage. If I'm Microsoft or whatever company, I would send a lot of people to IETF, Huawei, and so on, to sponsor their meetings and so on, and the social, the drinking sessions and so on, to make sure that they are represented for the commercial purpose. But unlike ICANN, they somehow don't have as much focus or the voices from the users. So I think they are realizing that. I'm speaking, partially putting on my hat of the Internet Society. We also have a very strong relationship historically with IETF. 1/3 of the Internet Society board actually comes from IETF. So they get to nominate 1/3 of our board. In return, actually, we provide a lot of the financial assistance to the IETF for its ongoing operation, to contribute to the standard setting agenda and function of the internet. So
can I have 10 seconds to
yeah,
share?
Let me finish it. So what I'm saying is that that's, I think many people in our community realize the deficiency of the IETF, and IETF also realized it to some extent, and I think they are trying to make some changes to embrace more people from civil society. But the reality is, it's expensive to go to all those meetings, and unlike ICANN, where they have a fellowship system to engage younger people and train them to come in and so on. Why? Because ICANN has a lot of money from making money from the domain names, but IETF doesn't have that. So that's the reality, okay? So I think I don't have the solution, but I think something needs to be done, and maybe Huawei, no, not Huawei, Huawei has the answer, I think.
I just try to bring the geopolitics issue, one of the history of the story for you. In the year 2002, the ICANN meeting in Shanghai. You don't believe it. In the GAC meeting, there is a Taiwan representative in the GAC meeting in Shanghai, but no China representative. China representative walk away from the Shanghai meeting. And you might be thinking about at the time is because of China against Taiwan. No, not true. That is totally not true. Because in the year 2002, the China won the ICANN under the UN system. The US government, China government do not recognize ICANN should be exist. If ICANN want to exist, they should be under the UN system. But you know, fortunately, it's not happened. So we still can enjoy the internet today. So, okay.
I think we're out of time, and let us thank our speakers for sharing all their experience and also the expertise and knowledge. And I'm sure many of us learned a lot from Guowei and Ken-ying. So let's give them a round of applause. Thank you.